You're with Lizzie. Now, this Saturday just gone, the 25th of November, was actually the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And part of violence against women actually includes economic harm. Economic harm is recognised as a form of psychological abuse within the Family Violence Act. Now, joining us on the show today to talk about this is Nicola Eccleton, who is the Head of Purpose Impact with Good Shepherd. Morena, welcome to the program, Nicola.
Hello, Lizzie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. Now, can you define to us what exactly economic harm is?
It's fairly complex, to be honest, but it can be the impact of family violence. So it might be damage to property or sabotaging someone's employment or restricting their access to bank accounts. And then during the relationship, it's using money as a form of control and coercion in the relationship. So sometimes it can be the impact of physical violence, but sometimes it can be a form of violence in and of itself.
I could imagine a woman living in a situation like this and perhaps not actually recognising that it is family violence. Is that something you often find?
I can think of a couple of clients that we've spoken to in the last few weeks, actually, who have said, I was married for 20 years. And so there's been a long, slow progression into behaviour that becomes really, really unhealthy and turns into abusive behaviour. And that's one of the problems with identifying these sorts of behaviours, is that they happen over a really long period of time. They get worse and worse. They're often alongside maybe gambling or maybe drug addictions or other forms of abusive behaviour. And so it's really difficult to pull out that moment where someone stopped you accessing the family bank account when it's a progression over that sort of period of time. And yes, people don't realise that it is a form of violence. But if you think about the dynamics of family violence, if you are trying to control someone, which is what it is fundamentally about, then using money and access to money is a really obvious way that you would be able to control someone.
Yeah. So those women, you were just giving some examples that have been a slow burn. What sort of happens that causes somebody to reach out to your organisation, which offers support?
Oh, that's a really good question. A really good question. And in family violence, we know that sometimes it can take people up to 7 times of sort of looking around and saying, "Oh, maybe I need some support," or "Oh, maybe something isn't right." I think it does. I think it is one of those things where someone has a seed planted about maybe something's not quite right, and it needs to be reinforced in several different ways, and then they finally think, actually, this isn't good enough, or this isn't right. So I do think it takes quite a lot of time, and then there becomes a tipping point usually. For our clients where physical violence is involved as well, it is usually something like the children, like I was concerned for the children's safety and then I needed to get out.
Yeah.
So it's some sort of tipping point event.
And I think it's incredibly brave of a woman to actually put her hand up and ask for support, because isn't that kind of the most dangerous time if you start? Is that right, Nicola?
Exactly right. That's the most dangerous thing someone can do. And we're really passionate about the financial sector having a little bit more of an understanding about what this means. And I spoke to a group the other day, and we talked about when a woman makes a decision to leave a violent relationship, which is the most dangerous time, the first thing that she tries to do is to get her finances in order. So she rings the bank and she starts talking about, can I open a new account?
Yeah.
And sometimes what we've seen is creditors and bankers and other people saying, "Oh, okay, well, I just need to ring him and tell him that you want to make those changes," or "I just want to ring him." And so we need people to understand some of those factors that are making things really dangerous for people at what is already a really dangerous time.
Yeah. What about somebody who's sort of on the outside, a friend, a family member, maybe somebody from church who's concerned? What is their best way of approaching? What should they do in these circumstances? They're worried about this kind of family violence.
I think the hardest thing is that people have to be ready in and of themselves. And
Yeah.
as a friend, it can be really hard to watch someone going through something really difficult and not being ready or right timing for help. And I think the answer is always being there, always being there. Role modeling what healthy and good and supportive and loving looks like, so that people can work out for themselves that actually this isn't right for me anymore. And just always being there and making it okay to ask for help, saying, hey, you don't need to go and get this support, but is there any harm in ringing one of the 0800 numbers and just talking to someone about it? Making all of that really okay, because one of the things that we know is that people have this idea that if you ring Women's Refuge, then you are going to need to go into a safe house and have a massive upheaval in your life. That's not the case. You can ring an 0800 number and just have a conversation about what to do, how you're feeling, is it normal, and what your options are. So just reminding people that, hey, picking up the phone, ringing 0800 Women's Refuge or Shine or whoever it is, and just talking is a really good start, and that you will always be there no matter what.
Yeah. And so as Good Shepherd, what sort of support do you guys provide around economic harm, economic abuse?
We're providing a really specialist support, and we're often working with women's refuges and other family violence agencies. Our team came from family violence, and so they knew that there was this amazing response in terms of crisis intervention and safety plans, but then women were sent out into the world with thousands of dollars worth of debt and no credit, and that there was a real gap. So that's the gap that we're filling, is that we will work with those clients, and we have really fantastic relationships with banks and other creditors where we can ring up and say, hey, we've got a really tricky, complex situation here. We've got protection orders in place. We've still got a joint mortgage, and we need to unpack that. So it's a very specialist financial mentoring support service. And we are negotiating repayment plans. We're negotiating debt to be written off. We're providing access to no interest loans. We have no interest loans normally with the BNZ, but we worked out that there was a bit of a gap for people affected by family violence, and so we needed to make some changes so we could have a specialist loan. People need to be able to pay for their car, for example, to get repaired, so that they can then use that car as part of their safety plan that they've established with their caseworker in a family violence agency. So it's that gnarly money stuff.
Yeah. Nicola, just in closing, for somebody who might be listening today, they're hearing our conversation and maybe they're having a light bulb moment and just starting to recognise that actually the relationship that they're in actually is involving abuse, power and control. What would your recommendation be to that person, Nicola?
I would say start jumping on some websites and having a little bit of a read. You will find stories from people who have been in your situation, who have had your light bulb moment, whether it's the Women's Refuge website, whether it's the Good Shepherd website. And you will start working through what those feelings are and reach out and, as I say, have a very informal conversation on one of those 0800 numbers. That's what they're there for.
Awesome. So Good Shepherd, the website is goodshepherd.org.nz, goodshepherd.org.nz. Nicola Eccleton, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Kia ora, Lizzie.
Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to click on like, subscribe and notifications. See you next time.